Do you know what legacy means?
It's what you pass down to your children and your children's children. It's what remains of you when you're gone.
This is going to be a Team Black specific spoiler discussion for the next little while here. This is your spoiler alert for the episode, and this is your spoiler alert for Team Black. There's so much desperation in Rhaenyra's voice when we get to her on the council at Dragonstone. She wants to A, find out who's responsible, but also B, find out what can be done to repair her name, because right now it is extremely tarnished. The Greens are finding a way to make it political, and one of her counselors, I forget who, said, like, this is the worst possible time for this because we need to rally troops to our cause, and then this happens and people are going to start turning against us. So this is quite possibly one of the worst case scenarios for Rhaenyra and her position and her claim to the throne.
Yeah, being accused of being a murderer, or the one that sends someone to murder somebody else, is never a good thing, especially when it's your own nephew. But to make matters worse, it was your 4-year-old nephew, and things are not good at the moment for either side. But yeah, I thought what she said to Daemon about you weakened her, he's weakened her position for the throne, was pretty spot on. I don't think it can be any more accurate than that. And at the same time, I totally believe that he never said go kill a kid. So it is kind of a redo, but in a much worse way. I don't think Aemon intended to kill Lucerys at the end of season 1. Mm-hmm. I think the dragons got into a spat with one another, and hearkening back to Viserys's words from the beginning of the pilot episode, you're a fool if you think you can control dragons.
They're a power that man should never have trifled with. I love that line.
It's one of the best lines, if not the best line in the series. And it showed to be true there. And in this case, it wasn't necessarily dragons, but you have two, accidents that have happened, and frankly, neither side is ever going to be able to recover from it.
Yeah, because in the pilot, not the pilot, the premiere of season 2, you hear that Alicent has tried to send correspondence to apologize for Luke's death, and you see her lighting a candle for him. Like, she is very much in remorse. She is very much upset over what happened, and wants to try to bury that before things get worse. And surprise, things do get worse, and she loses someone very important. And what's so powerful about the scene after, when she finishes her council and she dismisses everybody from the room, it's just her and Daemon now. I honestly feel like I could watch that scene multiple times over. I need to go back and watch the dialogue and the exchange, because this is Game of Thrones acting and writing at its peak, where she's asking, are you willing to accept me as queen and ruler, or are you just using me to cling to your lost inheritance? Like, she cuts deep in this because of how wounded she is. And I feel like part of it is a knee-jerk reaction. I feel part of it is retaliation. But I also can't help but wonder if she's had these trust issues for years, in spite of like the kids that they've had together, and in spite of the plans that they've made together, she's never truly been able to trust Daemon. And that trust is like now finally broken because of what he's done. Even if it was an accident, even if he didn't intend for Jaehaerys to die, like, you can't unring this bell now. What's done is done. His blood is on your hands, and he chooses to deflect. and he chooses to try to cover things up, and he tries to justify himself in so many different ways, and ultimately Rhaenyra is just not having it, and I think that this exchange may be one of the best one-on-one conversations we've had in Game of Thrones, period.
The yeah, Game of Thrones, House of the Dragon, Westeros. It's a incredible world filled with fantasy and dragons and just some of the most insane action sequences and storytelling you could ever imagine. But it's also grounded in reality. And do you know how many couples on planet Earth in 2024, going back to the Stone Man age, have had that same conversation about trust issues and trying to, find some common ground? Obviously, we're talking about royalty in this regard,
Mhm.
but boy, was it grounded in realism. And
Mhm.
I appreciated it. I appreciated the deflecting too, because it's things that happen in arguments. Um,
Yep.
Accountability is great, but it usually doesn't happen right away. And there's some you know there's realism there. They allowed the scene to breathe and play out, but I also think there's some blame to go for both of them in this regard. More so Damon, obviously. But I do think she attacks him in a way that she knows will hurt him. And
Yeah.
then even him, he's so caught up in the moment that he's belittling Viserys. And we've already seen from last season, deep down, he might have thought Viserys was a weak king, but he loved his brother, arguably more than anybody.
Yeah. Yeah, and it honestly reminds me a little bit of that Adam Driver, Scarlett Johansson movie. What is it? Marriage Story? Where
Ever seen it?
it's so incredibly deep, and also grounded in realism as far as the types of fights and conversations that couples have behind closed doors. And I only saw bits and clips of it on Facebook and Twitter and TikTok and places like that, because I could not bring myself to watch it in its entirety. The type of fighting that the two of them have in that movie is just crazy. It's just ridiculous. And we're getting a little ahead of ourselves here before we end up talking about the Greens. That's a whole other conversation to be had. Um, there's some really great conversations that happen there too. So be sure to stick around for the Green spoiler filled thoughts. Um, Kind of lost my train of thought. The arguments that take place in Marriage Story are very similar to the ones that take place in this scene, because you're saying things that you know will get a reaction from your partner. They're not necessarily things that you 100% mean, but they are things that are being said so that you can see how they respond to it. You're digging up things from the past. You're digging up old memories. You're digging up old wounds just to see what they say, just to see what they do. And it's like a way of testing love and a way of testing loyalty. And like you said, it's grounded in realism, but it's set with such a big backdrop behind it, because it's not just about can I trust my partner? It's about, can I trust somebody who is trying to help me secure my claim to rule this half of the world? And so there's huge stakes involved in this type of trust. And Rhaenyra truly seems to not know if she can trust Damon the way she thought she could.
Yeah, I mean, hey, you find out that your 4-year-old nephew's just been killed. It's hard, right? It's trust is such a easy thing to lose, and in this case, with so much pressure and so much hanging in the balance, and given the type of people they both are, it's very easy to not just lose it, but quite possibly never get it back.
Mhm.
And now Damon's now gone off on his own to God knows where, and it's I don't know spoilers. I don't believe he's gone off to, cause more shit or go against her word or turn on her. I think he's loyal to her. I think he tried to point that out. I think he was genuine when he said it was a mistake. Obviously, it was a mistake of epic proportions. It cost a child his life. But I still believe, I think people want to see him fly off the handle, loose cannon style. But I still believe at the end of the day, he has the best intentions for Rhaenyra. He just might not go about it in ways other people agree.
Well, but that's kind of the way that he's been this entire storyline. He's a rogue. He doesn't do everything by the book. He doesn't do things the way you would expect him to. I mean, hell, he basically had his wife of political convenience killed so that he could be free from that responsibility. So, like, this is not out of character for him. And I think Rhaenyra is justified in being upset over the loss of her nephew, especially in the manner that it was done. But I don't think she should be entirely surprised by Daemon's actions, because if anything, it was his rogue nature that she was attracted to in season 1. And it was his getting shit done that she needed in season 1 when she married him, because she didn't feel like she could take on this challenge alone, and she needed a problem solver. She needed someone who could get things done, and that's exactly what he does. Yes, he made a mistake with the execution of this plan, but like, this is very in character for him. So it's kind of hard to be 100% in Rhaenyra's corner, at least for me personally, because this is what he's done. This is who he is. And trying to make him behave in a way that's not him and make him do things her way would actually like reduce his effectiveness, I feel like. So it's a tough balance. But their exchange, their conversation was definitely one of the biggest elements. But then Rhaenyra also ends up confronting Mysaria later in the episode after Daemon takes off, and you kind of have like a woman to woman, heart to heart conversation that takes place there, where Mysaria basically claims that she'll never be seen or understood as a woman, and that people like Otto and Daemon are only going to see her as a whore. And she's like, that's probably what I should have stayed as, because that's like the only way that I got anywhere. And so the conversation, I think, was meant to be somewhat empowering, but I also feel like it was really bold of Mysaria to speak to the queen in the manner that she did, especially given her lower status. That exchange was fascinating to me, especially considering she is known as a dealer of information, and it was her information that basically ended up saving the queen at the end of the episode. So based on that conversation and based on the information she provided, I feel like she could end up being rewarded down the road, because now the queen basically owes her life.
For part 2 of our Team Black review, or Team Green reviews, parts 1 and 2, head on over to our playlist, House of the Dragon Season 2 reviews, or check our most recent uploads. For extended episodes, meaning the reviews put together, head on over to your favorite podcatcher, and you can find us there. Or you can find our full episode, which includes an extra segment, available on Patreon now, patreon.com/fandomempire.
Do you know what legacy means?
It's what you pass down to your children and your children's children. It's what remains of you when you're gone.